Boy, what a crowd. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and fellow North Dakotans. On behalf of the 6,000 active duty men and women, civilians, and their families who are the warriors of the North, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to Grand Forks Air Force Base. I'm going to pause just a second from my script because I've got such a great audience here and tell you from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate everything that this base has done to make itself an integral part of this community and help during this disaster. Thank you. The winter and spring of '97 has been long and an arduous journey, one whose memories have been burned into the minds of all of us. 8 blizzards, topped off by Hannah, who crippled the plains with her icy fury just a surprising few weeks ago. And the spring. We thought we knew the threat the spring would bring to this bountiful region of America. But no one, absolutely no one, could have imagined the full force of nature's fury that would be unleashed on this region. Well, we all know now. We can see it, we can feel it, and it weighs heavily on all our hearts. But our plight has unleashed another force, the compassion and the character of the American people, particularly those here in North Dakota. As evidence of this fact, our country's leaders are here today to see and sense firsthand what we all already know, that there is a big, big difference between devastation and defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pride and honor that I'm able to introduce the President of the United States, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Wait a minute, folks. I got to get these crutches right here. Thank you, General Hess. Let me begin by thanking everyone who is a part of the Grand Forks Air Force Base for what you do for our national security, and especially for what you have done to support the people of the Grand Forks communities in these last few days. I'm very proud of you. Thank you. As I think all of you know, I have just come from touring the devastation of the floods, as well as a very moving community meeting presided over by Mayor Owens, attended by Mayor Strauss and other mayors, the entire congressional delegation from North Dakota and from South Dakota, Senator Grams and Senator Wellstone from Minnesota, Congressman Colin Peterson from Minnesota, and the governors of North Dakota and Minnesota. It has been a very moving experience for all of us. 5 members of my cabinet are here, the Secretaries of Agriculture, Health and Human Services, Housing and Urban Development, Transportation, and the Administrator of the Small Business Administration. The Secretary of the Army is here. We have all come, first of all, to see firsthand what it is you've been going through. Secondly, to pledge to do our part to help make you whole. And thirdly, to tell you that we're for you. We have hardly ever seen such a remarkable demonstration of courage and commitment and cooperation and basic human strength, and we are very impressed and proud to be Americans when we see what you have done in the face of this terrible disaster. We know that this rebuilding is going to be a long-term prospect. And we also know that there are some very immediate and pressing human needs that many people have. Before I left this morning, I took some steps I wanted to tell you about. First, I authorized James Lee Witt and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to provide 100% of the direct federal assistance for all the emergency work that will be undertaken here. The second thing we did was to add to the counties already covered another 18 counties in South Dakota, in Minnesota, and 53 in South Dakota who need help. The third thing I did was to ask Congress to approve another $200 million in emergency funds for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. These funds will be available for both short-term emergency response activities and for long-term efforts to help you rebuild. If approved, this action will bring to $488 million the total amount of disaster assistance that I have requested for the people of these three states. Now, let me say I say again, I know there are short-term immediate concerns. People who need a place to sleep, people who don't know where their next check is coming from, even people who don't have access to basic sanitary facilities except here on the air base. We are working to restore those things with your local community folks, and we had some specific talks about what we could do to get proper housing available while you're rebuilding your communities. That's up there. Anybody hurt? Well, we've had a fire, a flood, a blizzard. I guess we can take it, God. So anyway, we'll have our folks here, and there'll be lots of them. And if, let me just say, this is going to be, this next few days, our FEMA director, James Lee Witt, and I have been working on these things a long time. He was my emergency director when I was governor of Arkansas. I know what's going to happen. I've been through floods and tornadoes and terrible losses. The next few days are going to be very, very hard on a lot of people. A lot of you who've been very, very brave and courageous and helped your friends and neighbors it's going to sink in on you what you have been through and what has been lost. And I want to encourage all of you to really look out for each other in the next few days and be sensitive to the enormous emotional pressures that some of you will feel, and also kind of be good to yourselves. Understand you don't have to be ashamed if you're heartbroken. But it's going to be tough in the next few days. But I also want you to feel very resolute about the long run. I have asked Director Witt to head an interagency task force to develop a long-term plan for what our responsibilities are to help you rebuild and be stronger and better than ever. And believe me, it may be hard to believe now, but you can rebuild stronger and better than ever, and we're going to help you do that. And we want you to keep your eyes on that future. Let me also say, as I go back to Washington to ask the Congress to approve this emergency package, I will never forget what I have seen and heard here. 4 of your community leaders, and who played various roles in the last several weeks, Ken Veen, Jim Schothorst, Randy Johnson, and Kurt Cruen, talked to me and to others in the meeting a few moments ago. I have seen the pictures of people battling the flames of the fire in the rising floods. I have seen rescue workers working around the clock even as they lost their own homes. I have seen people pitching in to rescue books from the University of North Dakota Library. I have read the last 3 days' editions of this newspaper. How in the world they kept producing a newspaper for you is beyond me, and you ought to be very proud of them for doing that. I read this morning that there's a message board right here that's covered with Authors for Free Housing all around, and that's the kind of spirit that will get everyone through this. With all the losses, I hope when this is bearing down on you in the next few days, you'll remember the enormous courage and shared pride and values and support that all of you have given each other. You have shown that when we think of our duties to one another, our own lives are better, that we're all stronger when we try to make sure our friends and neighbors are safe and strong as well. And no matter what you have lost in this terrible flood, what you have saved and strengthened and sharpened and shown to the world is infinitely better. And you should be very, very proud of it. I saw something your mayor said the other day that struck me in particular. She said, "What makes a community a place to live in is not the buildings, it's the people, the spirit and faith that are in those people. Water cannot wash that away, and fire cannot burn that away, and a blizzard cannot freeze that away. And if you don't give it away, it will bring you back better than ever, and we'll be there with you every step of the way." Thank you, and God bless you.